I'd be lost without them. I spent so much. I love my black jeans, so I care for them with Woolite All Darks, because even after 30 washes, black jeans stay black. Woolite keeps clothes looking like new.
Welcome to the KIRO Radio Rundown, the show where we collect takes from all the hosts on the biggest stories of the week and force them to compete involuntarily. It's the Puget Sound's Overton window in podcast form, and I, Jake Rummel, give you the chance to look through that window in 15-minute increments. So today we're going to talk about possible election unrest. After a several-month stretch of what felt like nonstop protests, local law enforcement agencies are drawing up plans for how to respond to whatever happens on Election Day. Here's Hannah Scott reporting for Seattle's Morning News on that, as well as on some of the more dramatic moments that took place just this weekend during local protests.
Demonstrators who've been spreading their message on the streets of Seattle headed to Bellevue Saturday to make some noise. But the city and police were well aware of the plan and monitored the group of about 100 from the time they arrived at a downtown park about 6 p.m. As the demonstrators made their way through the city to downtown, Bellevue Mayor Lynn Robinson took many by surprise, issuing a civil emergency alert and weapons ban, barring things like sticks, rocks, fireworks, and other items that have been hurled at the cops during protests in Seattle. The mayor said she issued the order to protect the public from multiple opposing groups.
One of the businesses here found propane tanks stuffed in the bushes. So all of this combined, plus their history in Seattle, that led us to believe that they were getting ready to launch an attack.
Yesterday, Bellevue Police Chief Steve Milet told KIRO 7 TV it was a win. In the end, things remained fairly peaceful, with just one arrest for somebody driving on a suspended license. Milet also spoke about the concern of future civil unrest over the election.
The election is coming. All of the regional law enforcement agencies have been in communication with each other. We are making preparations, and again, hoping for the best and concerned about, widespread civil unrest as a result.
The Seattle Times reporting the FBI also monitoring chatter for possible widespread civil unrest on Election Day and beyond over those election results, regardless of which way they go. For now, they say there's no specific threat or event that they're particularly concerned with, but they're preparing, as are 300 Washington National Guard troops, training specifically for possible election demonstrations. Governor Inslee was asked about the issue last week.
Well, I'm very hopeful that the margins of the election will be large enough that there's not a reason for controversy. That would be a great blessing for the United States. We hope that that'll be the case. We are considering, in a variety of ways, measures to make sure that we provide security. And I think we've got a good handle on that. I won't go into any great detail about it. But yes, we are thinking about things to be prepared should that occur.
Another protest on the east side over the weekend made clear anything is possible as a man pulled a gun after somebody threw liquid on him during a pro-Trump event in Woodinville.
Hey, gun! He's pulling. What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? What's your name? I'm calling the police. What's your... It's water, you snowflake. It's water.
That video has gone viral with millions of views and many using it as an example to spread their own positions, only heightening the growing tension in the lead up to Election Day.
G and Ursula talked about all this as well, but I was particularly interested in the reaction to the moment in Woodinville with the water and the Trump hat and the gun.
In my lifetime as a news person, we have had what we call slugs. That's the names we give stories. I remember a story called Murd Snowball. Murd being murder over a snowball. Someone threw a snowball at someone, and someone was killed because of that. So you need to remember that something can very easily trigger somebody.
I want to make
just bring it down a little bit.
Really quick. You said on both sides. When you say both sides, like you're talking about both sides, as in like whoever this person was that threw water on him.
Yeah. So that was an anti-Trump protester.
That's an anti-Trump protester, and he was wrong for that.
Yes.
But let's be clear about something.
Yes.
The person that pulled that gun and pointed
way too much.
Way too much, and he needs to go to jail.
Big take from G there, but here's what he said 49 seconds later. I know it was exactly 49 seconds because I checked.
I got to go back on what I just said. Hey, I'm wrong. No, I can't say that the person who pulled out his gun should go to jail. I'm wrong by that, because now that I think about it, you're right. It could have been anything. It could have been whatever. So no matter what, if you have something thrown on you, you don't know what it is at that time. It takes about a split second to figure out, was that water or whatever it was. So
yeah, and in fact, they still don't know. And the reason, because they know who this person is who pulled out the gun. They have not arrested him because I heard the police chief saying, we need to find out more details. Yeah. I mean, was this person doing it in response to something, him feeling like he was being attacked? Again, everyone needs to just chill out.
Jack Stine, filling in yesterday for Dori Monson, also tried to make sense of why this keeps happening.
It kind of hit me out of nowhere that I think that in this election cycle in particular, the level of rhetoric around healthcare, around immigration, around jobs, around COVID has been so intense. When people tell you, they're going to try to take your livelihood, or they're going to try to take away your health care. People with pre-existing conditions are going to be kicked off their health care. From either side of the aisle here. I'm talking about Republicans on one side saying that, there's people who are trying to take your freedoms and they're trying to take your liberties. I happen to be one of those guys. And then people on the other side who are saying they're trying to steal your health care. They're trying to take over they're trying to take everything that you've gotten from Obamacare away from you. If you put people in a situation where they believe that their livelihood is going to be taken away from them, or that their health care is going to be taken away from them, they will react. They will just become reactive because now they're in a fear state of mind. And I do wonder what happened to being neighborly and whatever happened to having a neighborly disagreement.
Stine was also perplexed by the reports that we just talked about that law enforcement is making plans for possible post-election protests.
Military police in Washington are preparing for possible civil unrest after the election. What? What? So now we're going to have the National Guard to come out for an election to have to protect people after an election? What's going on? I still am I've yet to fully grasp what is going on with people who feel as if violence is the best way forward. Because if you're going to try to intimidate people into staying home, it's not going to work. If you're going to try to intimidate people into not going out and voting who they want to vote for, it's not going to work. If you're going to try to intimidate people by saying, if you vote for this guy, we will hurt you, that's not going to work. It's actually going to make things worse.
Here's Mike Lewis from KIRO Nights talking about his greatest election aftermath concerns.
One of the things that's going to happen this year, very different than other years, is we may not have a final result on election night. We frequently don't on some elections. In fact, the last city council races, if you remember, a lot of the races weren't decided actually on the night of election. The presidential one typically is. It rarely goes longer. Obviously, it did with President Bush and former Vice President Al Gore. The concern here is that while that could happen again, if you remember back during the Bush and Gore court battle, there was a lot of consternation about it, but you didn't see the same level of social unrest then that you're seeing now. And so the question is, can we go through that period? I mean, even if we have a quiet election night, can we go through a period of additional vote counting, potential lawsuits, that sort of combative language that seems to come a lot of times from the White House, but certainly isn't solely limited to the White House, that sort of thing, if that sort of thing is actually going to continue through the 2 or 3 weeks past the election, that seems to be the big concern, that even if we get a quiet night, it's going to start ramping up pretty quickly right after that.
Kind of similarly, John Curley, on For Your Afternoon Drive, laid out what he imagines could happen the night of the election.
Look at 2016. He wins. People go into the streets, start to burn, and then the day he's inaugurated, they're screaming and yelling and breaking things and setting things on fire. I had seen that Black Lives Matter out of Sacramento was trying to raise enough money to have 10 people go and take a firearms safety training class. And then I read further into the thing, and basically what they said is, if Biden wins and Trump contests the victory, there will be riots. They will protest. They're organizing people, trying to get thousands and thousands of people to get ready to go out into the streets and do something if Trump contests the results of the thing. So this is the heckler's veto. We get a chance to see it live and in person. To me, it always seems like the left shows up, runs around breaking things, setting things on fire, and then a bunch of knuckleheads on the right show up, and they don't like the fact that the left's out there. So then there's the confrontation that goes on.
And it's the extreme on both sides, which is what we saw a lot of in Portland.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely in Portland. But here it is in Woodinville. People have got some Trump flags, and then some teenagers teenagers think, well, I'm going to go over there and scream and yell at them. So the guy's a complete moron for pulling out a gun. What is he going to do? Pull the gun out and shoot somebody for throwing something into his face? Probably not the best move for him, but certainly it does make the person who throws things in people's faces think twice. Is this person just nutty enough to pull out a gun and shoot me? Are you willing to lose your life because you don't like Donald Trump?
John and Tom's conversation then became about whether protests organized by the right or the left are more violent, generally speaking.
Are you aware of what people, if you're wearing a MAGA hat and you walk down the street, someone feels it's okay to scream at you or throw something at you, right? You understand that, right, Tom? You get that.
I don't know how many times that happens.
Okay.
But the thing is, I never hear you talk about these militias that are behind Ammon Bundy. And they have organizations, 26,000 people in 15 states. I mean, that sounds more scary to me than a random teenager who throws some possibly water.
Here's my point, is that I believe the left feels as if they need to do what they need to do in order to stop Donald Trump. And I think that the right, the crazies on the right, that they go off and protest, it's like, I want to be able to have my free speech. And the people on the left know your speech is violence. And therefore, your words hurt people, so then we're allowed to hurt you because you're hurting us with your thoughts.
So we're going to end with this. You might have noticed, maybe because you've tuned in, or just because you usually hear him on this show, or maybe you even saw a headline about it, Dori Monson's been absent for the last few weeks. Today, he returned to air, and he explained why. Here's that explanation in its entirety.
I will tell you, these have been a really challenging couple of weeks for a lot of us. If you're a regular listener to the show, you know that I've been away from the air for almost 3 weeks now, at the request of Bonneville, Seattle, KIRO Radio, and started after the gubernatorial debate between Jay Inslee and Lauren Culp. I was on Twitter. I wrote a comment about what I saw as a disconnect between what Jay Inslee calls science, after the way Washington State allows a person to change the sex on their birth certificate decades after they were born. Well, my tweet did not hit the mark. Instead, it was painful for some of our listeners and for a whole bunch of people in the Twitter sphere. And for that, as I said, the day after that tweet, I apologize. On that Thursday, almost 3 weeks ago, I said, I'm sorry. That's not where I was going. That's not what my intent was on that. Hours before that show, I shared a more personal apology by phone with a couple I know, a couple who were angry at me because they have a transgender adult child. Even with my apology that day, criticism of my tweet started pouring in. They said I was making fun of transgender people, which, honest to goodness, didn't even cross my mind then. But people called me transphobic. The Seattle Times called me transphobic. Websites called me transphobic. The truth is, I couldn't care less. And I've said this a million times on my show. I couldn't care less if an adult wants to adopt a different gender, change their gender. At the time, I was commenting on our governor and changing official state documents. But nonetheless, it is clear that my tweet caused some people quite a bit of pain. So I want to repeat what I said on October 8th to those who might not have heard it then. I'm sorry if you directly or indirectly were harmed. Our station has taken a lot of heat for that tweet, and I feel awful about that too. My producer, Nicole, tough as can be, but I apologize to her and thank her for standing strong. The person here at KIRO who answers our phones, Donna, she had nothing to do with the tweet, but her phones have been flooded, and I apologize to her too. There are a lot of people who have been touched by this. And since October 9th, I will tell you, advertisers on this show and our station, they have felt the pain. And I accept responsibility for that, too. Not only do I value and respect the relationships that I have with my advertisers, I cherish it. And your commitment has been incredible strength. Honest to goodness, besides my family and my faith, I get up every morning with you and our listeners in mind, my sponsors and my listeners. I will never give you less than 100% of myself. And so all of us, Bonneville, KIRO, me, you, the listeners, we're going through our own storms right now. Some of these are storm after storm after storm. As a Christian, I will continue to pray that each of us, each and every one of us, comes out of this year stronger. As a Christian, I pray for forgiveness if my words caused you pain. And on top of that, I'm praying that each of us uses diversity of thought to get to a greater strength. Honesty and diversity of thought. That's part of what makes Bonneville and KIRO such an incredible place for listeners and hosts like me. Bonneville has worked to handle this carefully and to make sure that everyone was treated fairly. And I'm grateful that I'm back on the air. Meanwhile, I will also pray that my words today create some healing for us all.
So, that's the KIRO Radio Rundown for October 27th, 2020. I'm Jake Rummel. I also produce, edit, and mix the show. Our opening theme is Break Over You by Draper, and our closing theme, Golden, by Parade of Lights. You don't always have time to listen to every KIRO Radio show, but you'll always have time for the KIRO Radio Rundown. See you on Thursday.